ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to our next panel discussion. And the next moderator is Mr. Corey Warfield. So, we'll be moderating the panel on the topic of how will the metaverse transform education. Now, this is extremely interesting. Mr. Warfield is Chief Growth Officer at Agro World, so has more than he says that years ago he found himself as a nearly 40-year-old waiter obsessed with innovative technologies such as 3D printing, entrepreneurial bug, etc. And so he became a metaverse enthusiast. And of course, he joined Agro World as a chief growth officer. He too is an influencer. He's been studying influencer marketing for such a long time, and he says that he's committed to success of the metaverse. And he says it's nice to meet you virtually. Jokes apart, ladies and gentlemen, let's now call upon the next panel discussion headed by Mr. Corey Warfield on the theme Metaverse Transform Education. We welcome you, Mr. Warfield, and rest of the panel members to this discussion. The platform is now yours.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here. I just got married the other day, so I'm here in Ipanema in Brazil. And I wanted to come and just kind of talk about this because I'm very passionate about not only education and the next generations, but obviously the metaverse technology as well. And so having some experts like we have here on the panel is just going to be great to get some different perspectives. So I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Many congratulations to you for sharing the good news with us. Thank you. Wish you good luck with this session.
Thank you. So, as far as the flow goes, am I supposed to introduce myself, or do we have some of the other speakers on? Am I going to ask them some questions?
So I think there's a sound problem there, but while Corey Warfield, so we cannot hear you. Yes, now it's better. Can't hear you still. All right. Meanwhile, Mr. Corey Warfield joins in. I would request Mr. Pranav Patel to please kindly lead the discussion forward. If all of you could introduce yourself and then get a discussion on the theme of role of metaverse in the education.
Thank you, Dr. Devan, and thank you everyone at CWC for having me on for this wonderful conference which you guys have worked on. Though I am not a IT or a digital world expert myself, my expertise is in the subject of Kautilya Arthashastra and Chanakya. But I've been tracking the metaverse because, as we always say, that if you want to understand what's going to happen in the future, you have to probably look into how the past has unfolded itself. So that's how I have been personally trying to understand the crypto world, the meta world for the past few years, and trying to see and probably here explore that how the future would unfold itself. So thank you everyone for having me on. Uh, I would request someone else to please also introduce themselves.
Thanks. I can go in next. My name is Bimaljeet. I head the enterprise business for NIIT in India. Uh, Again, Pranav, like you, not a tech professional, but a business guy, uh, trying to understand this space very closely, and really figure out what are the use cases, specifically in the education space. I think early days, but happy to learn from this forum. Vinita, you want to go next?
Hello, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
You are.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and hello to my Metaverse family. I feel extremely elated to be part of this amazing family, and wonderful to see you, Corey. Congratulations on your wedding, and it's a beautiful start to your new life.
Thank you so much.
And hello to all my panelists, my esteemed guests. I don't know how to introduce myself. All I can say is I'm a metaverse meta starter. So I began my career with Disney and Star TV as a lead actress. And I was also a part of the journalism world. I was working with CNN. And then finally, when 2021 happened and Facebook renamed itself as Meta, I joined this company, which was intrinsically working for the metaverse. And by the grace of God, I became world's first artist to launch an original music video on the theme of Meta in the metaverse. And that created a world record. And then people started asking me, so what is the goal ahead? And I always said that this is just the beginning. Whatever I'm doing is just to be heard because the message needs to go out loud in the world. There are many people with so many achievements who want to make a difference to this planet. And I'm here to integrate all of you in one beautiful body. And I'm so happy to be a part of this global conference, PwC. We are all together, all as a beautiful family, sharing our vibes, joy, love, music, and a democratic world where there is no racism, no hatred, no discrimination. So I actually totally envision a beautiful world where metaverse can create a common fraternity of brothers and sisters work together, bonded not by blood but by love.
I absolutely love that. And I have so many people ask me about use cases for the metaverse. I just got married the other day in the Amazon and we streamed it in the metaverse. We're also starting to do things at Agora World with no code drag and drop metaverse creation totally free. We're trying to remove every barrier to entry. And so, coming out of COVID, I think so many of us have experienced a life that is unlike anything that we ever experienced before COVID. And so, kind of keeping with the theme and getting to the actual meat of the conversation, my first question for the panelists is: COVID forced millions of children to learn from home instead of classrooms, and this is a two-part question. First of all, I wanted to know if you guys think that this was effective. I know that we had no choice, but in retrospect, was it effective trying to have children learn from their living rooms while that same living room was their parents' office and the gym and the restaurant, right? But and more importantly, what can we learn from this to help learn from home more effective in the future? I would love to start maybe with Mr. Patel.
Thank you, Corey. Yes, a very important question, and I would say the closest learning which we all as human race went through was in the past 2.5 years at the time of COVID, and a few technologies which were growing at a particular pace. Things like digital home delivery systems to email systems to company like Zoom, who had an exponential growth, and I would not say just in terms of business, but in terms of the value added things which they could do to human race. So I feel COVID gave us an experience which was an exponential for that period of time, and then we probably came back to reality once things opened up for everyone to start moving in the natural way. Some learnings, and based on this, which I would try to answer your question whether the learning through the digital world was effective for children in school. One thing we realize as humans that we all cannot stay in silos, so we cannot be by ourselves in terms of having our own space and we just live by itself. We all need to coexist. We all need to co-survive, and a society is required. An interactive society is required for us to coexist. Whereas that personal space is also becoming important with the kind of development which is happening, especially with the technology development that's happening. So what I look at is the learning system which we went through was definitely effective. However, it needs to be more social rather than being making people more individualistic. So we need to have more platforms where people can socialize, can meet more. Learning can happen through discussions and just not have one way learning. And I feel metaverse somewhere is bringing in that kind of and solution to this, because what I call it is two-way learning. Initially we were taught where we used to just get books and instructions in schools, and teachers used to just come and teach us, and we used to learn, and the curriculum was pre-decided in that context. With the internet coming in, we all moved into a learning curve where we just tried searching for things we want to learn, go on Google, find it, and there it is in front of us, and we started learning the way we wanted to learn rather than what is served to us. Now with metaverse coming in, what we look at is I'm learning something and I'm also implementing that together, so that we are trying to break as human race that gap which is there between learning and implementation. And probably metaverse is bringing us closer and closer, because the learning experiences are getting more and more immersive. First we used to just read something, the only eyes were answered, and then we started listening to radio or probably audio cassettes at one point of time, so we also started learning through hearing, right? And then came in the television and the whole viewing technology, where even the eyes came in, so eyes and ears got integrated because of the voice and vision. Internet got us further more and more integrated, where we can actually talk with each other, not just one way communication. Probably the next thing which we are looking at is get the sense of touch also realized. So if I'm wearing a suit and if someone else is wearing a suit, and if I'm shaking a hand with someone, I should probably feel the touch as well. So we're trying to see how much we can teleport as human race in terms of senses from one place to other. So I feel the COVID gave us a good experience. We have come back to a normal, though that was not the new normal. We came back as human race to interactive society as well. But then now we have found a new, I would say, normal, which is there, where there is hybrid, and that's where metaverse and the real world comes into picture. That you create a world in the virtual reality, at the same time also face the real world. So that is what I would
I,
like to share.
I love that. And you were saying making it more social. And I think that's part and parcel with making it more immersive. I think the more that people can feel immersed or transported into another world is incredibly valuable. And I think that social component is what really was lacking with just the Zoom from the room phase. I think we really need to make something where people feel more like their classmates are on their left and their right, and that their teacher's truly in front of them. And through that lens, I think the learnings coming out of this provide us with the blueprint for what needs to be done differently and better moving forward. So I absolutely love everything that you had to say. What in your assessment is the one thing that you wish would have been done differently, or if we were all placed on a home restriction again in the future, that would need to happen for this to be more effective next time?
For this to be more effective next time, I mean, see, as we always say, regulations come after innovation. So innovation always precedes any kind of regulation. So that is an innovation which has taken place. We have had this understanding that now we can do a lot many more things than what we used to do. But then we don't know how to go about regulating this, especially things like because we are creating a parallel society somewhere. So what would be the norms? What will be the regulators? Who will own what? Whether there will be a decentralized system, whether it will be a centralized system, whether we will be talking to each other as different verses talking to each other, or will there be one common verse? So what would be the access points available? So regulations will be a thing which is there, which has to be now focused upon. I feel, and with this growth which has happened, probably if we can be a little more futuristic and try and make policy documents, which we are doing, and especially a conference like this, I would say an outcome of a conference like this should be that we are able to present a paper, a white paper somewhere, which can probably be presented to the United Nations or something. And then probably when probably next year, if G20 is happening in India in October, we can probably share this as a part of, because they are looking at creating now policy guidelines towards the crypto, or probably I would say more of metaverse in a futuristic manner, which is there. So that is what I feel can be done better.
I totally agree. And I think we're all in for decentralization for Web3, but just like the original internet, and then the now what we're calling Web 2.0 being the app brands and the social media, governance and some type of a shared understanding of what needed to happen was very critical. And moving into this Web3, I think that's very on point as well. So I'm going to move this along, and I'm so sorry. Um, I'm in my 40s and my screen is very small, so I'm not able to read the name, but I think I know I'm going to butcher this. I might as well just say Mr. Singh. But I'd love your thoughts on this as well, as kind of what was learned from home effective for children through the COVID pandemic, and what can we kind of look to technology to fix moving forward?
Thanks, Corey. So I think effectiveness of learning, like any other learning, is a combination of many things. There is a learner, there is an environment, there is trainer, there is content. So it is a combination of many things. And I think what COVID did was it actually helped us or demonstrated that many constraints that we had assumed were actually not real constraints, right? So physical presence, physical infrastructure, physical proximity of the trainer, learning from anywhere. So a lot of those constraints that we had assumed, obviously, COVID demonstrated that those are not real constraints. But what it also did was it opened up the other part of the constraints, which is uh, is the learning very active or very immersive or very experiential, or is it very passive learning, right? So that's a constraint which opened up uh, our the digital infrastructure itself. How can that be made more richer in terms of enabling more immersive learning experiences? That's the other dimension which got exposed from a constraint perspective. I think then that's a segue into the use case of education in the metaverse, because everything that the metaverse ecosystem has to offer will probably take away of these constraints. So whether it is from a connectivity perspective or platform, or just the sheer fact that the learning would be so much learning by doing versus learning by just consuming, right? Where you will actually be able to embed yourself into real life, very well designed learning experiences or learning environments. I think those are things which will help. The fact that people can, there would be 3D content, again, very high quality content. People can touch and feel content, and I'll also segue into the part that we at NIT do, which is really the adult learning, which is the training and the professional learning, right? Where you can possibly create digital twins of many equipments and many scenarios and many machines that exist in the which are actually a constraint in the physical world, right? Because if say, for example, an aircraft company has to train their people on their engines, right? Now, how many engines can they have at multiple locations for them to get have their people trained, whereas all of those constraints do not exist in the virtual world. So again, I think what COVID did was created at least the right. It told us some constraints are not real constraints, but it has opened up. It has told us what are some of the other constraints. And I think if the whole ecosystem really mindfully innovate from here on, uh, given everything that that are the building blocks of the metaverse ecosystem, I think we have a great story going forward.
I totally agree. And I look at things like medical students being able to perform surgeries in the metaverse virtually and then remotely as well. And Mr. Patel, sir, was talking about touch. I look at the haptic suits and I look at things that they're looking to do as far as sending signals to the brain so that we can really feel like we are there. And so I often talk about the metaverse as being the fourth dimension, right? I believe it transcends time and space. I believe that students can experience what it might have been like to live in India in the 1700s, or to have, traveled the Oregon Trail back in the 1800s in the United States. And I think this type of experiential learning, especially when we build in that social component and that shared experience, that collective consciousness, is incredibly important. So I think this is a good segue. I want to throw this over to Benita first. Does the metaverse require virtual reality, or are there other ways for students to level up their academic pursuits using Web3 and metaverse? I think in my assessment, this is a misconception. But I've admired and respected Benita's perspective on the metaverse and this emerging world for so long that I'm excited to hear her perspective.
Well, not only virtual reality, but I feel Metaverse has opened up a Pandora's box. And the Pandora's box is like a magical world where we can be our own best avatars. So we are not limited. Number one, Metaverse has completely destroyed any form of limitations. So if you are on a wheelchair, you can still win the Metaverse Olympic for a certain sport that you can never imagine playing in the real world. So imagine people with disabilities and people with certain aspects of dreams that have never been fulfilled. So the metaverse has actually opened up doors for all the unlimited possibilities. So I feel not only virtual reality and augmented reality, metaverse can be, you know, in various forms. Like you can actually access the metaverse in 3D, in 2D, in various dimensions. So not only wearing a VR headset, like right the way you're surfing your computer, the same way there are other opportunities, there are other technologies that you can also surf the metaverse even if you cannot afford a VR headset. So first of all, I feel the metaverse has created a more democratic world, a more inclusive world where there is no dominance of the monopolistic power. Why am I saying? Because we are actually heading towards the open metaverse concept. Now, I know there are many controversies. Certain big tech giants want to monopolize this metaverse, which we are, I think, all of us, we are, trying and striving towards, so that we do not end up what the mistakes of Web 2 actually taught us. We don't want to repeat that in Web 3. So Web 3 is a space where we can actually eliminate all these limitations. Number two, I feel in terms of education, metaverse can create accountability. Now, why am I saying this? Imagine today there are villages, there are remote areas across the world where what you are teaching or what kind of training you're giving is not really monitored. But if there is a homogeneity through the metaverse, then actually the kind of lessons that you're planning for your students can be monitored. So, a lot of fanaticism and radicalism can be completely eliminated if certain teachings, those kind of polarization which certain teachers or certain academicians with their own inhibitions they come across, and then they impart wrong knowledge to the students, those things could be monitored. So there is a sense of accountability, there is a sense of vigilance, which is very, very important in today's world, where we can actually go ahead with a metaverse that can create a world where we are absolutely responsible for our deeds.
And it's on the blockchain, right? So it's on this immutable ledger that can be hearkened to. And people often ask about NFTs and what they're going to be used for. Your school records can become an NFT, your diplomas, your degrees, right? Your qualifications, all of these can become NFTs that live on the blockchain where there is so much more transparency, but also so much more ability for privacy as well. If your medical records are an NFT, you have access to who has control or access to view your medical records. Right now, we just kind of throw them out there and hope that they only end up in the hands of good actors. So I absolutely love that. And I often say if you can't access the metaverse from your smart television or from your phone, you're losing. It's great to be able to put on some glasses or some goggles and be able to, immerse yourself into this and look around and be in that new world. But if we can't access Web3 the way that we were able to access the original internet and Web2 via social media, I think that we're really at a deficit. So I want to come back to Mr. Singh and then Mr. Patel with this question. It's kind of a part two to the initial one. And then I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well, Benita. But if the internet changed the education space in the 90s, and then obviously beyond that, as we came into this more social, immersive Web 2, what can this next internet, this Web 3, do to take education to the next level?
Sure. So again, like we discussed, a lot of that is evolving, Corey. But I would I would put it in three uh, you know three clusters, not in any sequence really, but like I said in my opening comments, I think just the dimension of learning by doing. Uh, as we all know, I mean, uh, in most specialized professions, whether it is sports or like you said, doctors, uh, even chefs, they all learn by doing, and they practice by doing, right? And for any learning to be effective, like they say, the way to achieve mastery is by making a lot of mistakes. And today all of us know that the cost of making mistakes in a live environment or in a customer environment or a real environment are very, very high, right? I mean, which is why pilots say for example, learn flying by doing, right? Whereas, and I think what metaverse would allow is this learning by doing to be replicated in many, many other scenarios. So this whole dimension of building muscle memory through haptic devices, building real skills. So that's really one dimension. I think the other dimension is just, and that's a real constraint in the education world, which is, the availability of really, really high quality content, right? Content which people can touch and feel, content which people can get immersed in, content that people can play around with, the factors of the content. All of that is a big concern. I think uh, everything that I've learned about metaverse will help us solve that constraints, not only from the platform and technology perspective, but also from the fact that there would be crowdfunding of content, because content creators or content providers then have an easier route to monetize their content by like you said, by putting it on blockchain, by giving it rights both to view it or to edit it, and then monetize every transaction that is happening on their content. So I think both from an availability of content and just the quality of content will become very, very important, because I think Pranav did made that point that most of the content that we have today is 2D, right? Whereas a learner's mind is 3D. So, and our ability as humans to absorb 3D content is very, very high. So just the availability of content. I think the third dimension, which obviously is spoken about the most, which is the whole the social part, or the fact that it is very interactive, it is a human like, it is engagement, it is immersive, you can interact with people, while not while it takes away all the physical constraints of you being in a certain location, but with your digital avatar you can interact. Your facial expressions are visible to people. So there is a lot of human like engagement and interaction. So I think a combination of learning by doing, the options of making mistakes and getting yourself assessed in so-called a virtual environment before you come to a real environment, the availability of content, and the social engagement. I think these three dimensions put together would make the learning very, very effective. Colin.
Agree, and I think I then want to augment the question as I throw it over to Mr. Patel. One of the things that I think was maybe alluded to just now is that also potentially gives us the opportunity to do things that are impossible, right? We can go into the metaverse and we can fly, although in real life we can't fly. We can jump over buildings. We can create, replicas of coliseums from 1,000 years ago. So kind of through that lens, what are some things that you think are becoming available for this next generation of students and scholars to leverage the new technology for?
Very interesting question, because, as you rightly said, metaverse defies the law of gravity, right? So I can probably stand upside down in the metaverse and also walk on my hands. So there's lot many more things as an individual which we can do. For example, in terms of when we're talking of education, if I'm sitting in, say, in Mumbai in a classroom on my laptop or on probably a VR device, which is my classroom, and if the teacher is teaching me the Harappa civilization, which is a city which is the Mohenjo-daro, which is there in Punjab in Pakistan. Today, I can only imagine or probably see one of the photograph which probably some artist would have out of his imagination painted it. But if there is metaverse, which can actually probably give me an immersive experience, that I go into that place and try and see how that place used to look 3,000 years back, get a feel of it, learning is very different. These are the kind of things which we are going to break. break this challenges which we have. And the point of multiverse is that I might be able to travel time. So when I'm saying we can travel time is if I'm creating a metaverse which is of on reality, like a lot of people are selling land parcels, they are tying it to a NFT, and then if you can buy a land parcel, if you want to on the Earth, or you can buy something ownership on the Moon or Mars for that matter as well. So those are things which they are fixing it to the reality. And in reality, if we can talk of say New York City, like 24/7, we have a live camera available of Times Square, which is going on. And say after 30 years, if I'm talking to my grandchildren that when I was at Times Square, we did this and this, and he's like, oh really? Then I will say, wait, I will show you. I'll go into the metaverse, I'll browse that file which is there, which has been recorded so 30 years back, and I will show my grandkids this. Here, look, I was at Times Square. This is what I was doing. This is how I had fun in my life. You know, so we are going to break a lot of boundaries and a lot of things which we would have not imagined can happen going ahead. And as I said, sky is the only limit for us to go, and it's an evolution process. Where you asked whether VR headsets are going to be necessary. I would say it will be necessary and will not be necessary as well. Not that people don't use iPhone 8 and 9 these days. People do use, but then there are people using iPhone 14 as well. But slowly and steadily, as the experiences start improving, as economics start playing in, if we have availability of hardware, availability of resources, people will start moving into that frame of things. People did not have a computer or personal computer those days. We all used to go to cyber cafe and sit and access those computers and internet from there. Today, the computer is in our hands, and probably we're talking about just going into my glasses soon. So that is what is evolution all about. So I'm sure this is the future is going to be very wonderful and interesting.
I agree, and I think they're talking about lenses as well. And you said sky's the only limit. I don't even know if sky's going to be the limit with the Web3. And I think we can go on and on for this, but I do believe that we're up on time for this session. So I just want to thank everyone on the panel and everyone for tuning in as well. I hope this was beneficial. I had a blast.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Warfield. Thank you, Mr. Bhasin. Thank you, Mr. Patel. And of course, Ms. Chatterjee, for this wonderful conversation, which looked like could have stretched a little further as well if we were not falling short of time. Thank you once again. It would be fair to say that we are witnessing a rather a gathering of an elite group, a Web 3.0, all enthusiasts in their own right, and thought leaders today. And I'm sure we have lots to take back from this session. Thank you once again, all the panelists, and of course, Mr. Warfield. Have a good
Thank you very
day.
much. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you. Thank you.